All right, guys, what is going on? Welcome back to another Serious Angler podcast, episode number 167. If you're watching tonight's show, you see we have a new host with us tonight. Mr. Adam Deacon is going to be joining us on tonight's episode, Mr. Business from the Bass Boat. So if you're obviously listening on MP3, you'll be hearing Adam throughout the night, in addition to Andy and myself.
Welcome, man.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thanks, guys. I'm excited to be here.
Heck yeah.
It's been a while.
Like 50 episodes ago, roughly, I think we chatted with you.
I know, man. You guys crank them out. It's incredible to me. You guys throw a lot of stuff out there, and it's all really high quality. I was telling Bailey earlier, man, I binged on so many episodes over break.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for being a loyal listener, and thanks for joining tonight.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Well, today.
It's a pleasure to get you on, dude, because obviously you have your show, Business from the Bass Boat, as we mentioned. So it's nothing new for you. This is familiar territory, and obviously it's always good to get you back on the show. But yeah, dude, like I think Andy's right. It's been about 50 or so episodes ago. I think I actually tallied it up the other day. I looked from last January 1 till now, towards the end of the year, I think we did 140 shows. It is a lot. Every 3 a week.
Awesome,
it's been pumping them out.
Ranking.
Way to stay consistent. That's really impressive.
Appreciate it. But it's good to have you here today, dude, because like obviously with your show, it's business oriented, and Andy and I are obviously all over the freaking place. So it's good to have some stability with us tonight. So it's good
moderation. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
just, but it's like, listen, guys, just steal the show. It's fine.
Hey, take it. Andy and I will sit back, have a beer or two. You go ahead and talk. You take it away.
No, guys. I mean, I'm all over the place too. But yeah, no, I mean, my podcast kind of is more oriented towards the business side of the fishing world. So I'm curious to talk to KJ and Jeff about kind of what they've got going. I'm excited.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, we got KJ and Jeff down below in the queue. Obviously, for people know, the show is brought to you by, we have Queen Tackle. We're partnered with them. Obviously, we plug their products. You can see the code literally scrolling on every single episode. But it's good to finally get them on the show, because not only is Jeff and KJ running this amazing company that's innovative with their terminal tackle and their jigs, but also because KJ obviously fished the Opens this year, qualified for the Elite Series. And don't put any slack on Jeff too. He got Co-Angler of the Year in the Open Series too. So
I saw that.
Dude's got the skills in the back of the boat. So we're gonna be talking all about it tonight. It's gonna be a lot of fun because we're gonna talk to him obviously both how his Co-Angler side of things, KJ making the Elite Series, and then towards the end of the show we're gonna get into the history and all about Queen Tackle. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But before we get into that, we're gonna do a quick message from Hobie, and then we will get the Queen gentleman on. All right, we are back, and we are joined by Jeff and KJ Queen. What's going on, fellas?
Hey, good afternoon.
What's going on?
We're here.
We talked for probably here, 45 minutes. Is there a delay on your guys' end, Andy, Adam? Or is it just me?
I'm hearing a little delay.
Little delay? Okay.
Hold on,
All right, let's try that now. So maybe that'll work, just adding you back in. But how's the connection? Can you guys hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, really good now.
Great. Okay, awesome. Cool. Sweet. Well, before we get into the show, obviously we have a lot to talk about, and obviously the Co-Angler side, KJ making the elites, all about Queen Tackle. But before we get into all of it, we'd like to hear not only KJ's side of things, but Jeff's as well, how you both kind of got started with bass fishing, that first story, and who installed the passion in the both of you.
Well, I mean, honestly, ever since I can remember, being just a little bitty runt, we were out on the water every day. Anytime we had an opportunity, we was always out there fishing. And me, my dad, my grandpa, we'd be out there. If it was rain, a little bit of sunshine, it didn't matter. We were going to go fishing somewhere on the lake. And man, just being out there on the water all the time, I think it just helped over the years adapt and learn. And once you get to fish with, guys like my dad and my grandpa, they're good fishermen, and I learned a lot from them. And just as I think I was 6 years old when we fished our first tournament. Me and Dad entered together, and we fished as a father and son team. And we ended up finishing first in the father and son division of the tournament. And, ever since then, it was just, I was connected. I was hooked. I loved the tournament side of it. I loved being out there, the competition of, you never know what your next cast, you could catch the fish to win the tournament. And it's just that adrenaline rush is just what drives me. I love it. So.
Yeah, same for me. I mean, I've been fishing for over 40 years. It was really odd this year, actually fishing as a co-angler in the Opens. I only did that so I could travel around and be in the boat, practice with KJ, and got to hang out with his college roommates as well, which was Cody Huff and John Garrett. Both are
phenomenal.
Yeah, they're going to be in the elites soon as well. I mean, they're just incredible fishermen. But for 40 years, I really stood at the front of the boat and did a lot of tournament fishing with my dad or with KJ here, and it's just been a passion of mine. I did all local stuff, but here where we're from Catawba, North Carolina, which is right here at Lake Norman, and it's got a real history of really great fishermen, starting back with like Hank Parker. I fished against Hank Parker. I mean, he is my dad's age, so come to the local tournaments. You had Hank Parker and his kids, and then a little bit later on, we're fishing, and KJ and I are fishing tournaments, and we're fishing against the Hank Cherries, and Brian Thrift and I grew up fishing Federation tournaments together, traveling together. David Williams and I have traveled and slept in tents together, and that's just a small list of all. There's about 30 pros from this area. Matt Airy, Shane LaHue, Shane Lineberger, Robbie Dye. All those guys are guys I grew up fishing with, and it's kind of funny when we have tournaments here. There'll be 25 wrap boats out there that are pro boats, and a lot of times they aren't even the favorite guys. They're just the local guys. So we have a real passion for it here, and know that, I mean, the competition's stiff, has always been stiff here, and you learn how to either fish or you learn how to donate a lot of money.
Fair enough.
So that's kind of how we grew up and got into the sport.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something, at least Andrew and I'm sure Adam can relate to, being in Colorado, is our local derbs, we don't get many pros. Like you guys obviously have the hotbeds down there, like in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama, where I'm sure you'll see on a bunch of local tournaments, you'll have these pros if they're allowed to fish in them. We don't get that up here. Yeah, I think we had Jamie Hartman, but he's now down in Arkansas, I think. So like usually if they are from New York, they're gone. Once they get to the pros, they move somewhere else. But it's it's nice because we don't freeze over. So we actually compete all year long, and there's probably anywhere from 5 to 10 tournaments a week that you can fish here, and you're fishing against really great competition. It's literally every day there's a tournament within a 50-mile radius of our house. So you learn how to, if you want to competitively fish, there's a lot of opportunity here. Yeah, it's a great place if you want to live off being a regional angler, the guy that just cherry picks a certain state and can, yeah.
And that's really what I was doing. I was more of the regional guy that, I've held my own around locally. And so, when I started fishing the Opens, it was really weird. Kind of a little interesting thing on my very first tournament that I fished was we went down to Florida, and day one I did okay. Day two I drew a guy, and when we stopped the boat, I've fished so many team tournaments in my life. The very first thing I jumped to the front of the boat and I put the boat down. And the guy's like, "Dude, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, let me get to the back of the boat." He just breaks down laughing at me. He's like, "I've never seen that happen from a co-angler." I said, "Man, after 40 years, it's habit to throw that trolling motor in the water." So that was kind of a weird thing for me.
That's funny.
That's actually hilarious. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, that guy was like looking at me like, "What are you doing?" And I was like,
"What is going on?"
Sorry about that. And so it was really weird, actually.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
Adam, is there any pros from Colorado? I can't even think of any.
No, man, not at all. You know, we've got a couple guys through the Bass Nation that have fished the Classic, and that's really, you know, that's really it. You know, I mean, there's guys that'll travel, but same kind of thing. Most of the time, once they start getting to a point where they want to pursue it, they're going to move and just be closer to everything for sure. But Jeff, same kind of deal. I really, you know, fished all through college and always as a boater, fish locally always as a boater. And this year I jumped into the Central Opens as a co.
Okay.
And yeah, and on Rayburn, man, like I was just like so kind of distraught going to not be able to choose where I want to go and that kind of thing. And I've had some experience on Rayburn fishing as a boater and that kind of stuff too. And I was just like, oh, you know, but it's just a completely different thing. And I have so much more respect for it. And I learned a lot doing it, to be honest.
Yeah, I did too. I actually didn't think I could learn new stuff, but I think with every tournament, fishing different styles and different lakes was really kind of cool. I learned a lot. Got to fish with some great fishermen. I got Brad Watley. I got to fish with G-Man one tournament on Rayburn. Actually drew him out of Rayburn. He taught me more about grass fishing than I ever thought I could possibly learn in a day. But yeah, had a blast.
Heck yeah.
And just local guys, you know, a lot of local sticks that were in these opens were, you know, you get to see a lot of unique stuff. It was really, really fun for me.
Yeah. I drew a local guy on Rayburn as well, Drew Sloan, and he's just a hammer in that Texas area. And man, like, you know, he was completely open and up front. We were punching grass, and he's like, dude, if I were you, he's like, I'd be punching farther in than I am. I'm punching the line. There's plenty of fish in here. And I stuck a 7-pounder behind, so that was sweet. That was I stayed with.
I'm sure he ate his words after he saw you got the 7-pounder.
Dude, honestly, coolest guy ever. I mean, he jumped. He goes, oh God, like he's like that's not a small one. and I'm leaning on this thing, and it's hung and everything else. And he's like, you want me to grab it? You want me to grab it? And he was awesome. He was a really good guy.
Sweet.
It was cool. He's like, dude, I told you, don't go where I'm going. You'll catch one.
That's too funny. Well, KJ, talk to us a little bit about, because obviously, you know, it was your first year in the Opens, correct?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
First year.
Now you're on. You've 1 for 1, so you got the 100% success rate going right now. So talk to us about your season, though. How do you think it went? Ups and downs, the whole jazz.
Well, the season this year, it was definitely ups and downs throughout the whole season. Started off first season, first of the year was down there at Harris Chain in Florida, and you know, first day going out, my first fish of my first Bass Open I ever fished in my life. I have one on bed that was like 6.5, 7 pounds, and I fished for her for about 5 minutes. I popped her, put her in a boat, and I had another one about 5.5 laying right over from her, and I reached over there and made like 10 or 12 casts and got it to bite. So my first 2 fish was a 7 and a 5.5. So I was real fired up. And that first day, and come back in, was sitting in third going out. And then the second day I went out there, had a decent bag of fish, had like 13, 14 pounds, and then needed a kicker. I needed just one big fish, one of them Florida giants that just gets you up there. And I searched, and I had like 3.5 hours left to fish, and I had like 13 pounds. And I was like, I just got to go keep moving until I find a big girl that was moving up, because they were moving up then. And went over there and seen a big girl laying on the bed and fished for her for about 30 minutes, got her to bite, missed it, fished for it for another 40 minutes, and finally got to bite and set back, and it broke her off. And it's like that's my first, you know, little bump in the road. And it's like, dang, you know, I did decent in that tournament, and I ended up in like 28th. I was right there at it, got a good check, got my points that I needed. And, you know, I was like, all right, it's not too bad, good little start, but just a little bump in the road kind of hurt me a little bit. And then going out to Arkansas River, and, you know, I finished 11th out there. I was first guy out of the cut. So I was, you know, I was 15th, yeah, my bad. And I was first guy like right out of making that top 12 cut. And out there, I actually had the first day I missed one fish the first day. I fished pretty clean, and it was, you know, just some bad luck. It got down from brush and come off. And the second day, I had 3 fish that was over in a lot of thick brush, and I was doing some tight flipping. They were in the thickest brush that you could find, and I had the bites that go out towards deep water, set the hook, and then just, get a little slack in there and come off. I ended up only catching like 3 fish that second day at the Arkansas River. So if I get my other 2, I had 4 other big ones on, and you could tell whenever you get bit, they were big. And if I get some of them in, it's a whole little different story. But we go to Hartwell, and down there was catching fish. There was a lot of schooling fish, but when they'd come up schooling, you'd have an opportunity to catch 20 pounds because they were herring fish, so they'd be mixed in. They'd be 5-6 pounders mixed with 1.5 2-pounders, and it just seemed like you get rolling, you start catching them, and you're like, oh, I'm catching one every cast, but they'd be like 1.5 pound, 3/4, and you pull it back in, they'd be like 2.5 3-pounder with it. You're like, dang, man, it's like you're around them, it's just getting them to bite. So Hartwell, that was definitely a struggle for me there. I finished like in 50s, 56, I think, at Hartwell, and that was a little bump in the road that kind of set my points a little bit back, made me drop down, and we went to Rayburn. Rayburn was another one of them that was a little bit of a struggle for me too. I went down there thinking, I knew it was going to take a big bag, and I went out there and couldn't really get on much of a brush pile bite. I was catching some schooling fish, and could get 1 or 2 good kicker bites out of brush piles, and I caught what I caught. I had a decent bag, finished like 98th, but I didn't have it like 9-10 pounds a day, and it just wasn't enough to get that jump back up. And that's what really hurt me a lot in my points. And I was kind of worried about it, really worried about it. And we went down, and the next 3 tournaments were all going to be grinder tournaments. It got going from that. I go to Neely Henry, and Neely's, it was in the fall time. Anytime you're fishing in the fall, you're going to have some tough weather conditions, and anything is going to affect them fish. And went to Neely. Neely was pretty tough, grinded out, caught some fish though, managed to get my points that I needed. And I think, just having them points and catching them fish just kind of gave me a little bit of a bump to go on the fish Cherokee. And Cherokee was another one of the grinder tournaments, but just, stuck it out. I ended up catching 8 fish total during 2-day fishing at Cherokee too. It was a brutal grind. I got them fired up there at the end of the day, and ended up losing a big smallmouth there at Cherokee. So I've lost fish all year this year that I feel like if I get them in, I could have been a little bit better at the top. But all in all, it's fishing. It's going to happen. You're gonna lose fish here and there. But it felt like a fairly clean year this year. Just landing some fish. Fish landing was not the best on. Just a little bad luck here and there, stuff that wasn't necessarily my fault, but it's just kind of like, bad luck. Maybe a fish bites it, like that Rayburn. I was fishing, and I had a big one come up and eat my top water, and it was on the back side of the grass mat, and it just digs right into the grass mat. And it's like, you sit back and you hang it and you have him on, and you're going to it as fast as you can. He's sitting there wallering, and he comes off. It's like, man, he's like, you catch that fish, it's a 6-7 pounder. It's like, you jump way up there. You make a big move in your points. So
yeah. I think you might have had some mishaps, but you still qualified for the elites nonetheless. But you talk about fish landing. How are you with scooping up smallmouth?
Oh man, I'm telling you, that's definitely going to be next year when we go to Champlain and St. Lawrence. It's going to be a little trick. Now I've got to go up there and fish in St. Lawrence some with the college fishing and everything else, and got to do a little bit of trying to catch them with my hands myself. Actually, this summer I went up there, and you can check it out on Clean Tackle's Instagram page. There's a video of me catching smallmouth, and in it, I'm like, well, I got to get my practice down. I'm sitting there, we got the net in the boat, but it's like, 5 pounds small. It's like, all right, let's get the practice down and try and learn how to land these fish. So that's what I did this summer, is just trying to learn how to land them. They're definitely brown freaks of nature, that's for sure.
Yeah, I have a big piece of advice for you when it comes to bellying smallmouth. Never try to go for the mouth unless they're dang on tired. If you get your hand on their belly, as soon as they come out of the water, 9 times out of 10, they'll just stop what they're doing. They like their bellies tickled. Especially when they're big and round like a football, you can almost like barely get your palm on them. Those are the ones, like when you pull them up, they'll just sit right in your hand.
You're talking to the best smallmouth handler this side of the east of Mississippi.
Yeah. I can tell
ear paws for a reason.
I can tell he's palmed a few in his life. There's no doubt.
So
Destin DeMary and a buddy of ours, they fished a tournament at Erie. I think Andy was telling you guys offline. And that's where he coined his name Bear Paws, because literally Andy's just scooping these smallmouth like it was his job, and like 42-degree water.
No net. I was just grabbing them, and I'm like, I got him. Every fish. Oh man. Yeah.
It's tricky though. Like a lot of people kind of discredit how tough it can be, especially when they're going crazy. They're not like, they're not completely worn out. Oh man, that's tough.
Yeah, that bass rule of no net really puts a challenge there. That's a neat little challenge for the anglers.
You got to find the fish, you got to catch the fish, and then you actually literally, quite like, and not figuratively, put them in.
Double catch them.
You do, double catch.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a catch then snatch, because a lot of those ones you just have to come so quick on them.
Oh yeah, you see it on live, and you can see it too. Like some of the guys from the south that don't have a lot of experience up on, with these smallmouth up north, and you see them struggling trying to grab the mouth, and they're like nipping at it like a crab, and like don't do that. Like from up north, they just snatch them and they're in.
No, but literally, like I would say 99 out of 100 times, if you can get your big paw on that belly and you just hug them to the side of the boat, they'll stop moving.
Like a running back taking a football.
Exactly.
What's really cool about that is we fish Lake Norman all the time, and it's got a bunch of spotted bass in it. And them spots, the same thing. It's not necessarily the same thing with the belly, but you can take a spot and hold a spot upside down, and a spot will quit moving the same way. Yeah. It's like something with their vertical line or something. You turn them over, and he won't flop or anything.
I feel like I've seen that when they're catching them on jerkbaits. They turn them upside down to unhook them, so they don't flail all over the place.
That's it.
I did not know that. That's sweet.
I didn't either. I always see guys flip them over, and it seems to be, a jerkbait or something. But that's crazy.
Yep. That's like Shark Week. You guys ever watch Shark Week when the people, they take the sharks and put them like upside down? That's how you could like rub their belly and stuff. That makes sense now.
I'm not sure if it works on North. Definitely those Alabama spotted bass. It's a definite must do, because them things just sit there and go crazy until you, and then you do it and they just go completely limp.
Oh yeah, I had my first experience with spotted bass this past November. I was down on Chickamauga, and after the tournament, went out with my buddy on Nickajack, and that's where we got in some good spots, and we're catching them on jerkbaits. And I thought I was scared of smallies with jerkbaits, but those things are freaking on crack. I thought smallies were bad. I was scared. I thought I was gonna have like 3 or 4 treble hooks in my hand that day. It was bad, but I wish I knew to just put them upside down.
Yeah, it's always like the 12-inch one.
Yeah, the 12-inch ones are always the ones I'm terrified of, because they're just
get them in.
They're like little death missiles. They will get you every time.
Well, KJ, talk to us about your feelings going into your first elite season. Obviously, this is the goal you got there. Now you're looking ahead. Obviously, it's you're going through the grind of every rookie elite series angler of getting the sponsors, getting the financials down. But that aside, obviously pressure aside, but talking about just fishing, what are your feelings going into the season?
Definitely a little nerve-wracking, because it's a dream that I've always had ever since I was little. Get to fish with and against the pros, be a pro, and fish against the guys that's up there, the elite series guys. And going out this year, it's like, it is a little intimidating, but whenever you look back and you look at the opens and everything else, and I think there's like 60 some like traveling pros that fish the opens this year, and it's like, them guys ain't much difference between me and you. It's just they're out there just trying to catch a fish, and it's you just kind of I'm going at it next year. I'm gonna put everything aside and just focus on trying to put them in the boat, and try not to let the pressure get to me. So
yeah.
And heck, you've already fished with and traveled with some of the guys in the college series, and being in North Carolina, you see them on any given weekend probably. So you're pretty much well accustomed to being around big name guys.
It is, definitely. Yeah, I call up, Shane. Shane LaHue. Me and him hang out a good bit on the weekends here and there. Hang out, and have a good time. But it's just a good connection, being close with guys like that. You know, it's nice to be able to have a contact that's, you know, that's up there, that's been there, that's done that. And, you know, I've talked to Patrick Walters a little bit. I've called him up. He's one of my real good buddies. And he's, you know, he's like, man, if you need anything, just call me. He says, you know, a little hairy when you first get on. He says, it's going to be, you know, a little intimidating, but he says, just stick with it. And if you got any questions, just ask me. He said, I'll help you out. But he said, you should be able to do it, man. He said, you'll be able to do it good. So.
Yeah, catching fish.
That's right. Yeah, it is. So.
Yeah, but it's cool though. Like how you just mentioned, you know, you can call Walters, and if you need anything, it's like you're grinding against these guys every day to obviously not only beat the fish, but you have to beat these guys too. But at the end of the day, everyone's willing to help each other out for the most part. So
they are. Yeah, good group of guys.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
you know, it's funny. We grew up around a lot of these same guys, so. You know, whether it's, you know, talking trash with Cherry or LaHue or Lineberger or Robbie Dye, it's like, I mean, we show up at the tournaments and we're all joking and kidding and poking fun at each other and at weigh in, you know, so it's not quite as, you know, it's not quite as intimidating as it would be, I think, if you see these guys and you're thinking there's somebody different, right? But they're just common guys, just like we are. They just have a passion for fishing. They love it. I mean, they eat it up. There's no doubt, and they're good. But yeah, but it's cool. Those guys are really good guys as well, though. I mean, you know, traveling around with those guys over the years, you can't beat how you know. How they'll stop and help. I mean, I was out traveling with Robbie Dye and, you know, pulled into the parking lot. My brand new boat, I'd run over a nail coming into the parking lot and got a flat tire. Robbie jumps down and says, hey, I got a patch kit. Pops out the nail, puts a patch kit in for me. I'm standing there the whole time with my hands in my pocket. And he's like, well, hey, you're going to buy me dinner now. So
hey, it sounds like you owe somebody a steak and a beer.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Heck yeah, definitely. Adam, any questions for KJ here?
Man, yeah, I guess you know, first off, you know, what makes North Carolina so special on kicking out this amount of pros, and you know, why do you think you know, you see that?
Honestly, one of my opinions on this is the fisheries that we have. You know, you can see this from all over United States. If you kind of pay attention to where some of your pros generate from, and you'll see more of, like, say, Guntersville, Alabama. Think about how many pros come from Guntersville. But you look at the fishery that it's from. So if you got, like, say, if you're fishing a fishery where you're only going out getting 2 to 3, 5 bites a day, and you know, you're still learning when you're out on the water. But if you're going out and you're catching like 30, 40, or 50 fish a day, you know, you're getting attuned to that bite. You know exactly what that bite feels like, and it just makes, I mean, I feel like it makes you a little bit better fisherman. You know, you're starting to catch numbers, you're seeing how fish relate, how they react, but not just how one fish reacts or 2 or 3 fish or 4. You're seeing how like 20 fish react or 30 fish, and then them fish are on a specific pattern. And that helps you learn how to break down the lakes a lot better. And Lake Norman's the same way. It's, you know, it's full of fish. So you have days where we've caught 100 fish days, and you'll go out there and you'll catch these numbers of fish. And, you know, I feel like if you're catching them numbers, you're learning the whole time. And when you put that, you're catching all the numbers of fish, learning how the fish relate, how they react, and then you add the competition on top of it. And with how strong the competition is, you got to bring your A game if you want to do it. If you want to make any money, or else you're going to lose all your money. So it's you know, one of those things. It's like, man, you got to step up and definitely learn how to fish. But you know, if you look at like I said earlier, Guntersville or you know, Eufaula or just any of them places like that. And Texas is a perfect example of it. You look at Texas, and there's unbelievable amounts of pros that come out of Texas. But look at the fisheries that Texas have. You know, Grape and Toledo. You got all these lakes that just produces these big bags, big fish, and I think that's, you know, in big numbers of fish. And these guys get out there and they just get attuned to it, and they learn it, and they figure it out. So.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I feel like for sure, definitely for making it the area that we're from, or just in general, just different places, the fisheries and the type of bodies of water definitely affect how the fisherman outcome over the years, at least outcome is. So,
yeah. That Jordan Lake down there looks like a lot of fun.
Yes,
oh yeah, yeah,
no doubt. It's got lots of big fish in it, and you know, you see that Major League Fishing event that they had down there, man.
Yeah.
It is insane. They get up shallow and pull up out of that timber, and they get up on the banks. You can have some fun, and that's, you know, one of the examples that, you know, Lake Norman is a great fishery. Jordan is a great fishery, and you know, you've got places that's producing big fish, lots of fish. You're gonna have a lot more fishermen at it, a lot better.
Yeah, I was talking to Josh Bertrand about Lake Jordan or Jordan Lake, and he was telling me he goes, because I was talking to him, I couldn't remember what time of year they went back to Jordan. I've already made this conversation, and he goes, dude, the things I would do to get back to just go fun fish that place. And what's cool, and not to get like too personal here, but I one of my uncles on my mom's side, I actually haven't actually met him until this past year. He was actually able to come up and visit, and I learned that I knew he lived in North Carolina, but I learned he's only 20 minutes from Jordan. So I'm like, all right, I'm coming to visit, and I'm coming to visit a lot.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, there's a lot of some really good fisheries here. I think one of the things that really sets the guys apart now when they hit the opens is these college anglers, because they're getting exposed to so much. And so my daughter actually went to Bethel on a fishing scholarship, and then he actually followed her to Bethel while they were there. They actually fished Lake Norman. The very first tournament they had was Lake Norman. The Bass Regional came here, and him and my daughter finished second in that here on our home lakes. That was kind of nice. But,
sweet.
Yeah, but I think, fishing at Bethel really helps a lot as well, because you got anglers from all over the United States. They're all intense. When they all love the outdoors. It's not just that they bass fish; they duck hunt. They do everything. I mean, and when they get there, they put them all in the same suite in a dorm. So they talk. I go up there and visit. I don't even want to leave, because all they do is sit around and talk 24/7 about fishing and duck hunting and boats and grabs and everything. And so
sweet.
And then you got these contacts once you get through, where you can travel all over the United States from literally coast to coast. And you've got somebody that you can stay with, that you can talk to. And it's just, that whole college experience is incredible now. It's you learn so much. You get to fish Florida, Texas, you get to come up north to St. Lawrence. And I think you just learn so much more in college now and it helps when you hit that elite series, where those guys have been at it for 20, 30 years. You don't feel like you're just way behind the curve. In fact, in some cases, I think you're ahead of the curve, where you've got that exposure to a lot of different techniques and a lot of different places, lakes and different things. So I think that was one of the things that really helped advance his career. I mean, I could kick his butt when he left home to go to college, every day of the week, but now he comes back and he can almost hold his own now. So
almost.
I'd have to imagine when you get the three of you on the boat all together. You said your daughter fished as well. It's got to be kind of competitive between
the true hammer.
No doubt, it's always competition.
Oh, it's competition.
And I think that definitely helps, though, too. I mean, it just keeps you in the drive, keeps you wanting to be the guy at the top. So, I mean, it helps for sure. There's no doubt.
That talking trash game up to par as well.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, there's always a lot of junk talking that goes on when you get in our boat. There's no doubt.
So, do you guys have like friendly comps where loser buys dinner for the whole squad on the way home?
No, they just get to clean the fish. So, if we keep some perch or striper or something, they get to take care of that and grill it up for us when we get back.
Perfect. It sounds like you normally win in the competition.
Yeah, I do.
Well, guess what? I'm your dad, so I win anyways.
It's like,
Go
you
clean the
caught
fish.
5 more than me. You lose today because I'm your dad.
That's right. There's always some penalty. It's got to be thrown in there.
Always.
You want some tungsten jigs? Go clean those fish.
That's right. Exactly.
Well, Jeff, we want to transition here and talk about your co-angler, angler of the year. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. That's like I say, that was a unique experience for me. It's at time it's frustrating because it's no different than what we said a while ago. You're in the boat and you're thinking, and I've practice fished with him for 3 or 4 or 5 days leading up to the tournament, and I'm like, dude, if you just go over there and throw a crankbait, we could catch a load of fish, but you're out here drop shotting in the middle of the ocean and there's nothing out here. You want to tell them that, but it's their game, and you got to respect the fact you're fishing behind the pro. It's his game. They don't leave a lot of fish. I mean, these guys are really good, and I think the secret to being a really good co-angler is just that you just got to stay mentally tough. Think about everything you're doing. Try to put any little advantage in your favor that you possibly can. And I do make a lot of my own tackles, so I felt like at times that there were several tournaments I did better than my pros did. Where it was like, okay, you had a 3-fish day, and I put 17 in the boat today, and it's like, yeah, I had a really great day, and you can call it luck, but at the end of the day, I think it has to do with you got a little edge of sometimes experience, even from the 40 years, or sometimes I think just the lures and things that we use are real important. So,
heck yeah.
But we had, I had a really good season. I ended up not zeroing a single tournament, which is really difficult to do as a co-angler, because these guys are so darn good. And then with our COVID schedule this year, all the tournaments getting pushed back to the fall, man, we had to go to places like Louisville and then even Neely Henry. Those places were brutal tough. I mean, you put a lot. You think, well, if you go there just for fun fishing and you show up and you're out there and you're catching fish, but the problem is with the opens there, those guys show up sometimes 2 weeks, 3 weeks prior to the tournament, and that lake is completely beat up. I mean, they've seen every lure. Every piece of structure's been hit. They all got nice graphs now. They all know how to read those graphs. So there's not a lot of secrets out there. So it puts the anglers at a disadvantage, but the co-anglers, I think, really have to just be mentally tough and realize, hey, I may not get but 2 or 3 bites all day. And in a lot of cases, that's all I would get, would be like maybe 2 or 3 bites. And that was just, enough to sometimes get me a check and make it to the next tournament.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, it's a 3-fish limit too on the coast side.
Yeah,
correct?
exactly. Yeah, I think that's a real. Sometimes that's an advantage, because I could actually pick up a big jig, a big tungsten jig, and and fish with something that I knew I didn't need but 1 or 2, maybe 3 bites all day. If I can just get 3 bites, so I don't have to get 5. So sometimes I think it's an advantage for a co-angler to shift and where a lot of co-anglers may pick up like a little tiny worm or a little shaky head, I'd actually go the opposite way. I would try to get a bigger bite, a bigger fish, knowing I might not get but 1 bite, but if I can get that 4 or 5 pound bite, that would be what I needed. And that helped. That paid off for me quite a few times this year.
Heck yeah. That's sweet.
So we're going to see you on the front next year, or are you just going to travel with KJ?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So Falcon Rods, actually, for the co-angler of the year, they give free entries to one of the divisions. So I'm going to actually fish the Eastern Opens next year, and it's kind of cool. It goes to the Harris chain, which I really like, and then it comes back to Douglas, which I've actually done really good on Douglas, and then it finishes up in September on my home lake of Lake Norman. So I'm like, hey, this is perfect. I can go ahead and have a good time from front of the boat, and they actually win a little money. So
might have 2 queens on the Elite Series.
Yeah, I don't know if we could afford that, but that'd be nice.
Yeah, KJ, how would you feel if your pops was competing with you on the Elite Series now? Let's take that trash talking to a whole nother level.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'd love for to see him out there with me fishing the Elites. I'm pulling for him strong next year. I want him to get on, make it there with me. Me and him talked about that yesterday. We was like, how cool would it be if we both were on the Elites together? Father son duo. Like that would be awesome. So
I don't think
no, I don't think there's ever been a father son duo.
Yeah,
that would be crazy.
That's what I was telling him. I was like, is there a father son duo? I was like, I don't know if there's not or not, but I mean, we could be, the queens. So
yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. I told him next year that when the Opens roll around, that he's going to have to travel with me and be a co-angler. So
perfect. I love it.
Practice and show me the spots. So he's going to be the only elite angler fishing as a co-angler in the Opens next year.
I mean, it saves you a bunch of money.
Yeah, no doubt. So
and get to learn a little bit too. So
yeah.
Well,
we have a good time.
I can just see the scenario now. Like you fish as a co and you draw one of the Elite Series guys you fish against. You're like, oh, what the heck?
You're just sneaking around his boat, looking at what he's got.
I ain't fishing that day. It's like, hey, what's in that box right there? You care if I take a peek sneak?
That makes an interesting dock talk at the end of the day.
You don't mind if I take a look at your graph, do you?
Yeah, let me take a few pictures of them waypoints there.
Well, talking about next year too, because like obviously there's an information rule, right? With talking about the events that are coming up. So that's got to be kind of like I wouldn't say it's a problem, but an obstacle for you guys, because I'm sure you talk about stuff all the time. So I'm sure you got to kind of be careful with, schedule and what you're talking with KJ about.
Yeah, we do.
No doubt. Definitely. And, being with the having only 2.5 days of practice, that makes it really tough. As soon as they come out with the schedule, it's done. You cannot get any more information from here on out. And, you go into these places, these different lakes, and it's kind of like what he said earlier with the college fishing. You get your experience through the college fishing. It was nice. At least whenever I'm going to these places, I'll have at least a little bit of somewhat knowledge of, recent past knowledge of being there. But, it's definitely going to be, I feel like, intimidating a little bit, but, it's fishing. So it's just kind of going with the swing and not necessarily, your practice. I was talking with Patrick about it, and I was like, dude, what do you think about the 2-day of practice? Because like when we go fishing open, at Lay, me and him went down a week and a half early. We put the time in, and there was no doubt this year we definitely put the time in. Every open we went in and put at least like a week of time before, pre-practicing, trying to learn the lake. Every day we fished from daylight to dark. Every day. It was practice. It was daylight to dark all year, and it paid off. I made the Elite Series because of it, but you just I talked to Patrick about it, and I was like, man, it's like, so what do you think about not having as much practice? And he's like, well, it's kind of like you scramble. He says it's not necessarily a scramble as much as it is you become more confident in your fishing capabilities. It's like, you pull up to a spot and it's like, you have to have the confidence of knowing whether or not your bait, he's going to bite it whenever you get it in front of him, because you don't have the time to sit there and, finesse and do 10 different things trying to find these fish. You got to find fish for 4 days of a tournament and 2.5 days of practice. Mm-hmm. So it's, constantly trying to cover water and learn what the fish are doing, not necessarily, what they've been doing in the past as much as what they're doing in the present with the weather conditions, fishing the current condition that the fish are in. So,
yeah. And that's where fishing your confidence becomes a very important factor, because it kind of can narrow down things as well. If there's a bait or a style of fishing that is going to work at that tournament, and it's your confidence, then it kind of narrows down what you're going to be looking for in practice too.
Correct. And that's, next year, that's my whole thing. It's like, I'm going to go out next year. I'm going to throw a clean tackle jig. And, I know for a fact that I got confidence in it. If I get that jig around the fish, I feel like he's going to bite it. So, that tungsten, I really do think it makes a big difference in getting a few extra bites. You got something that's, if somebody's going down the bank flipping bushes and, and they're just flipping through there, and their bait's going down, hitting the bottom, maybe not making him react. I'll go down through there and I flip my jig, and it goes down, it hits, and that tungsten head hits a little bit of rock, or it hits, that wood or just metal or anything. It's going to give a different sound. It's something different. And, I think having something a little bit different, just it helps with your mind game of it. You're going out. It's like, I'm going out next year. It's like, I'm be throwing my jigs, my switchblades, my, shaky heads, my, anything of that nature. And it's like, I'm going to have confidence in that bait that I'm using because it's like, it's just different. It's instead of everybody else's and their brothers, lead jig, I got something that's just a little bit better. And, even on our products too, on our jigs, we take all of our jigs and we coffee scent them. So they're, you smell our jigs, they have a strong coffee scent. So when that fish hits it too, he's going to hold on to it just a little bit longer. And, just, it builds a confidence up, builds your, what you're fishing with up a lot better than just picking one up out of the pack and not knowing whether or not he's going to bite it or not.
Slap a rage craw on the back of that too, and that fish has got a coffee high, so of course he's
got a coffee high.
That's right.
Yeah,
you're crazy.
And it may not be that it's going to get like 20 more fish in the boat, but at that level, it's 1 or 2 bites, right? It's just the tiniest of advantages, and I think that's one of the things growing up here, fishing all the tournaments locally here. You learn real quick that what's it going to do to get that little bit bigger bite? What are you going to have to do to get just, put that little extra weight in the boat? Because these boys are going to catch them. So you got to go out and you begin to learn that fishing is all about probability, right? And it's just a game of probability. And it's like, how do I get in the best location? And you may not be in the best location, but how do I maximize that? What's my lure choice? What's my speed I'm going to do? What's the gamble if I leave and go to somewhere else? How much time is it going to take to get there? You put all those probabilities together, and the guy figures it out the most. Anybody can get lucky and win an event. You see that all the time where you got a guy that wins an event, even locally here. You got a guy that comes in and he wins an event, but then for the next 2 years he's gonna be down here donating money to the pack, because the guys that are consistent, that's day in, day out, they put all those little things together, and every probability tries to get that in their favor, just every little advantage. And I think that's real important.
Definitely.
I feel
what's that, Peter?
I was just saying, I feel like this year too, with me and Dad both, I fished the Opens and he fished Opens with me, and we both did very well, and we kept our tungsten in our hand the entire year. And I don't know if that made a difference or not, but I
think it does.
I really do 100% think it does make a difference. You're just having something a little bit extra, and it don't mean, even if it means I get 1 extra bite, that 1 bite can go such a long ways in fishing.
Especially if it's a 4-pounder instead of a 2-pounder.
Exactly.
Right. I think lure designers, people that or if you go and talk to a lot of these pros that are really good, a lot of them are tackle junkies, and either they design their lures or they know every little thing. You talk to Jacob Wheeler, he knows every little thing. You talk to Thrift knows everything about every bit of his lures, his electronics. Those guys, they put every advantage in their favor. I think lure designers have a little bit of an edge too. If you really think about how things are designed, and you toy with your own products, and you work all the time modifying. Even though we make our own stuff, we even modify our own things. As almost every tournament, we're making little tiny adjustments. Everything we can do to get that advantage.
Heck yeah. Well, transitioning to talking more about Queen Tackle then. And I'm sure, Adam's going to have probably a bunch of questions on the whole business side of this.
Yeah.
But, getting into just talk to us in its inception, how did it start? What was the original ideas going forth with that?
Yeah. So I've always tinkered with our lures. Like I say, for, forever, that's been something that we tie our own jigs. We've always tinkered and made our own stuff. One of the things, I was talking to Hank Parker several years ago, And I asked him about getting into tournament fishing. I knew KJ was in college going that route. And he said, one of the things he recommended is, he said, if he's going to really try to go pro and be a big time pro, he said, a big mistake that Hank Parker felt like he made is that he actually didn't come out with his own line of spinner baits. And he told me if he had taken the classic spinnerbait, and instead of being sponsored by them, if he had made his own and sold his own brand, he felt like it was $14 million difference over his career that he would have made different when he compared the amounts. I said, well, that's not a small amount of money. And so he said, yeah, he said, so recommendation was start our own tackle line. He said, make a real high quality product, something that you're going to fish with. Don't sell junk, and get creative and innovative. And he said, and that was his recommendation. So the idea actually started with Hank Parker, kind of suggesting that. And so, once, jigs have been kind of my go-to thing. And so that's how I kind of got started, was with taking the jigs. And at the time, I didn't feel like there were very many really good tungsten jigs on the market. We had some great lead jigs here. We got shooter lures. We got MR lures. There's several lure jig guys here in this area that make jigs, but nobody had a really great tungsten jig. And so I said, well, let's take all the tricks that we know and let's make it into a tungsten jig. And then I leveraged all the guys at Bethel. You get them all here. They would come down for the Lake Norman tournament, and I'd have like 12 guys standing in my house here. And I'm like, get them all around the table. It's like, okay, guys, I'll fix breakfast in the morning, but y'all got to tell me, like, what's this best jig design? What's your best jig that you would use? Or what's your best punch skirt, or what would be the ideal shaky head that you could possibly make? And we would sit around for hours and just brainstorm and talk about colors and types of skirts and everything about it. And so what we did, I took all that information, and that's what we put into our jigs. We think we're making like one of the premier jigs that's on the market today, whether it's, from the tungsten to the wire tie to the really fine silicone skirts to the fact that we coffee sand the skirt itself. There's a lot of skirts that you get in the markets today, and you open up that jig and you can smell the plastic, holding it way out. And to me, that is I think the fish can sense that. And I'm not sure, maybe underwater people say, oh, it don't make a difference. Well, I know for a fact, I've seen it where I've taken people out and I use a certain scented lure and they're not using it, and really just have a field day catching fish, fishing at that same location, same lures. It's just that scent. So it's all the little things that I think makes a difference. We're really conscious about the length of the bait keepers that we put on here to put our plastics on. You can buy a lot of jigs that don't have a bait keeper. We think you definitely need a bait keeper, and we want it where whenever I put our plastics up there, because we skip a lot of docks, I don't want that plastic sliding down during the cast. All those little things we think about when we're designing our lures. And so so ideally it's got the right weed guard, it's got the right hook in it, no matter whether it's a football or a swim jig or a finesse jig. Every one of ours are set. We think about the flexibility of the weed guard, how many strands it's got in it, what size hook we're going to put in it. It's very specific. What are you going to use this jig for? And so all that has actually went into these products. And I'll credit the Bethel guys a lot for that, because they're all like, no, that's too small a hook, or that's too big a hook, or no, I want a heavy weed guard or a light weed guard. And we'd all sit and debate it forever. And it's like getting in here and playing with it. And that's what I meant by I couldn't leave those guys. I'd love to go and just spend months with them, talking with them, because those guys have a whole wealth of information in their head. And it's because they're from every part of the country. That's the coolest thing. You're talking to guys that, this guy's from the state of Washington, another guy's from the state of New York, and got another guy from Florida. And every one of them has a little trick that's kind of unique to their location. So had a lot of good help building these products.
Heck
Yeah,
yeah.
you've got
It sounds like you
super
have
diverse.
the great median of everything. It's like the center focus of everyone's thoughts. It's awesome.
Right.
The top jig. That's really, really cool. You know, with the fine silicone versus like traditional, you know, maybe a cheaper jig that's got that thicker silicone, and then to like, you know, round rubber or living rubber, you know, what do you see difference wise there, and why did you guys choose to go with the fine silicone?
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons why the silicone, that finer silicone skirt, if you're using like a swim jig or something of that nature, and also whenever you're using like say a flipping jig, when you're winding a swim jig through the water, that fine silicone actually picks up and that water gets trapped inside of that skirt material a little bit easier than it can with the thicker silicone. It has more action. It gives actually a little bit of a swimming like action to the skirt itself whenever it's coming through the water.
Okay.
I want that to pulse. I think that pulse is just like a fish doesn't have like a lot of swim. He just kind of pulses.
Very trembling.
And I want that pulse of that. And I love the way silicone will fan out when it hits the bottom. And then like if I've got a chunk or something on there, it seems like that fish can come down. He'll suck that chunk in really good with like that. Now I know a lot of guys that use the living rubber. I'm not a fan of it, but I know some guys that's all they'll use is the living rubber with the big round rubber. But you know, to each his own. You know, that's just for us. It's always been really fine. The finest silicone that I can find is what I want. I don't want it to be. I want it to really pulse when it comes through the water.
Just a little tremble to it, almost just not much at all. Just kind of like a little minnow. If you look at a minnow in the water, he has just a little tremor to him, and that's
there's always that little
just
well,
a little.
And I think by having that many strands, right, by having that finer strand, that smaller strand, there's just more of that quiver compared to if you have, you know, less strands on your jig, you know.
Yeah. And we work directly with the company that makes all of our skirt material for us. They make this very specific colors. Some of the colors are very unique for us. Probably the coolest one that I think they make is we got. Well, I don't know if y'all can see it on here, but this is called Blue Grape, and it's actually real dark blue on one side, and it's a laminate skirt. So it's actually got purple on one side and blue, and it really glistens a lot when it comes through the water.
Kind of like what Andy was talking about earlier.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny, I've never used it up north, which I'm going to change that. Yeah,
I'm looking at it right now. I'm a jig junkie, so I love jig fishing.
Yeah, on the Tennessee River, that color is like phenomenal, and it's a whole different color that I've never seen anybody else that has this skirt color, and so that's a really unique one that we have made for us.
Almost two-tone. It's got like two different colors in one. So
yeah. Now, I mean, and you're talking about working with this company directly as far as with your skirts. With 2020, were there any complications with COVID on getting parts and, you know, different pieces?
Yes, yeah, and it's so we really try to keep our inventories out, you know, several months worth of inventory. And at times we got down to where we run out of inventory, where we would work through almost a 6-month supply, and you know, people were laid off, they weren't working, so you would try to get people, and it was really, really difficult with COVID. We got a few new suppliers that we had to bring on board and supply some shortages that we had. You know, we tried some suppliers too that it was expensive setting them up, getting them going, and they just couldn't make the quality that we wanted. So it's like, it was actually very painful. COVID's been very, very painful from a business standpoint for us, because you know, you think you're setting somebody up and you're working with them, and then they can't mass produce it, or they can't produce it at all at the quality that you want. And so you end up with, you know, scrap, you know, 800 jigs that are sitting here, and it's like, it's totally wrong color, totally won't work for you. And so we've actually got boxes of that stuff. And I don't like to fire sell it, because I don't want my brand to be out there as, hey, yes, you know, we got jigs and the weed guards in them are too stiff. it's like, shoot, the fish would hit and you can't even pull the hook hard enough to get the weed guard to give enough to hook the fish. And it's like, it's like, you know,
quality product.
Right. So now we're sitting here, you know, and you got to take the weed guard out and drill it out and re-put a weed guard in. It's like, it's almost not worth the effort. It takes you more time than it's worth. So, you know, you're sitting on 800 jigs and you look at them every day and go, okay, I'm going to have to throw them in the trash. It ain't going to make the part, make the lineup.
They're good practice jigs.
Yeah, they are good. You're exactly right. You know, if you don't want to hook a fish, that's you know, get
you
that.
Just want to know how big they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly
when
right.
you pull on them, it comes right out of that mouth. And you're like, perfect.
Yeah, that's right. I'm throwing a practice jig. Maybe I had to be the deal.
There you go. That's the new deal.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. You know, it seems like 2020 has been a crazy year in the fishing industry, and just talking to different owners of companies, it's been it's been hard to get products across all aspects of things, but the demand is there. You know, it sounds like there's just because, you know, I mean, I talked to people who the second after the relief checks came in, they saw a huge bump on their website, you know, of sales and that kind of thing. Was the demand still there and you guys just had a hard time because we couldn't get enough products made?
Yeah, I think so because we had a good inventory going into the year.
Yeah.
In some ways it was a blessing because we actually sold to tackle shops and into some distributors that we probably couldn't have got in, that they were just couldn't get the product right. They maybe had a different brand of jig, and that guy's jigs, for whatever reason, they couldn't get them, and they're like, hey, can y'all get? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, so in a
cool.
certain way, it wasn't bad. It was like some of the places that it slowed down, but overall it actually was a boost for us as far as sales go. We actually had a really good year, and you know, we're continuously growing. We've been at this now for a little over 3 years, and every year our sales have significantly increased. We you know, first year it was a little bit small, but then, you know, second, third, and now we're going into our 4th year, and we're hoping that it continues to grow like it's been doing. So that's good.
Yeah, I think something cool to kind of highlight about it is I gained a lot of confidence this year in the swim jig, throwing your guys' tungsten swim jig. And I think the move for me was switching over to your guys' tungsten, because when I used to throw swim jigs in the past, I'd obviously have lead. But with this tungsten, and I feel like with the lead, I'm just pulling dead weight behind it. But I think with the tungsten more is like, depending, obviously, I found my favorite trailer for a swim jig is the Christy Craw. And I can actually feel that Christy Craw actually kick with that tungsten jig on it. But yeah, I had a freaking blast this year throwing a swim jig. I found that, especially up here in New York, our clear water, the bluegill ghost has been my go-to. And like the Christy Craw, they make on it's a green pumpkin, like blue. I don't know if I can get that in the picture there, but it's like absolutely perfect with what it goes with. That's been dynamite for me. But you know, Andy and I did a video of our top 5 baits for 2020, and you know, I mentioned in it, it's no, like, obviously, yes, it is a plug, you know, working with you guys, but also in the same point in time, it literally was my number 1 confidence bait for 2020, and that was the hammerhead. It's just, I want to learn about the idea behind putting the rattles inside the head, because, and I could be wrong, it couldn't be me not looking around the industry enough, but I don't think I've seen a football jig with rattles inside the head.
No, definitely not, and definitely not tungsten, because it was a
pain to create.
Golly, yeah, it was hard to create, because with tungsten it melts at 5,000 degrees. So you actually create the tungsten and then assemble it on the hook. So it's not poured like lead onto the hook, because if you tried pouring it on the hook, it'd melt the hook, of course. So you actually have to create all these little intricate parts that will actually come together
to make
on the top of your hook to make that. And then after it all comes together, we actually then had you have to create a chamber in the inside, and then we actually put a tungsten bead on each side of that. And our goal was not to make something loud like a rattle trap sound. Our goal was to make it click. So if you go into a bottom of like your swimming pool, it's kind of crazy, but if you actually take a crawfish and you pick it up and you listen at it click when it moves, its tail will make a little tiny click sound. So our goal was to make a jig that had that same click sound as it went across the bottom of the lake. So if you throw it there and you bring it across that clay or at sand bottom or even rocks, you're getting that tiny little click sound, and it's not much. But if you listen to a crayfish underwater, then you listen to the amplification of the water on our hammerhead jigs. It's extremely close match there to the to what crayfish sound like. And so that was our goal, was to make something that we could actually use on Kentucky Lake, because that's where he was fishing at the time. Has a lot of crayfish in certain areas of it, and especially ledge fishing, something that you could take a big 3/4 ounce football jig, make those long casts, wind it across the bottom, and then stop it and hit it. And Garrett Paquette actually come in, I think, second there, using that hammerhead jig. And we kept it a secret for a long time, but he was one of the first ones to kind of expose that jig actually does work. It's not a gimmick. That little clicker was actually a tiny advantage of making it as close to a crawfish sound as possible to get that little extra trigger. And if you ever get a chance to talk to Garrett about it, he'll tell you he was around like 5 other boats fishing the exact same area, and he's throwing it out there, letting it settle on the bottom and barely moving getting that tiny little click, and he's catching fish, and the other guys aren't catching them in that tournament. So it's definitely, and David Williams, if you go back and look at some of his big wins that he had on the pro tour, he's been using our hammerhead jigs as well. He had found this one dock that had like some concrete that run under it, and he could actually every morning stop on it and throw that hammerhead jig over there and go down to the concrete, and he'd sit there and he said he'd just barely shake it, and he said he could catch them. And everybody else, he said it was a community dock. Everybody else is coming in fishing it. He could pull in right behind him and get his limit in no time. Then he'd run out and he'd use a big spinnerbait to try to upgrade throughout the day. But he said that gave him his confidence. He could get 5 in the first 30 minutes right there using that hammerhead jig. So pretty sweet when you all the loose little tricks like that. So
yeah. Have you thought about putting that in the flipping jig too?
We have. The trouble is it's hard to create that chamber. We actually flip with the hammerhead jig a little bit. If you do the weed guard in it's a little bit relaxed, because for football I want a relaxed weed guard. But if you can take an actual little tiny piece of tubing and put it down, up, back toward the back of the head here.
Yeah.
And that little bit of tubing, if you glue that on there, Gerald Swindle just actually revealed that. What are you doing, dude? But it will tighten up that weed guard. So if you got a weed guard and you think it's too relaxed, you put that on there, put a dab of glue, and it tightens that up. And that's how we flip with our hammerheads. But we actually recommend putting that little bit of tubing up there to tighten that up, so it doesn't hang up as bad. Mm-hmm. It's actually made for that foot, throwing it on the ridges and stuff. And so it's got, you make that long cast and you're out there 60, 70 yards out, and that big, 3 or 4 or 5 pounder hits, you want to be able to really get that hook in him. Yeah. You got a lot of line out. Even with fluorocarbon, you got that bow and that stretch a little bit.
I never really thought to flip with this thing. I'm gonna have to try that this year.
Firstly, you flip it into like a bush or a lay down, and I've done it several times. You'll be fishing and you flip it in there and it goes in, and your regular beaver or something of that nature, or regular jig, you'll flip it in there, it goes down, work it up, work it down. But with that hammerhead, you flip it in there and it goes down in that brush pile, and you just sit there and shake it just a little bit, not much, just a little shake, and that thing's just going click, 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 and then fish will fire on it. It's pretty cool.
Also, I could see it coming down like penduluming off the branches and just click, 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 click.
Just something
gets to the bottom, gone. All of a sudden, your line's going to the left or right. And you're like, oh yeah, hammer them.
Yeah, that's how I caught my PB Smallie this year, was on the hammerhead, and that's all I was doing. I was fire up on the rock piles that I had marked, and I would just, like you said, wouldn't even move it. I would just knock slack so it would start rattling a little bit. And then the next thing you know, the line went boom, doubled over and laid into it. And I was like, that ain't a small fish.
No. I seen those pics on that. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
You guys are blessed with those big smallies. We don't get many of those down here.
No,
Well,
we had Mike Huff tell me, he goes, he goes, what do I got to pay you guys to bring down a live well full of gobies to Cherokee?
You don't want that. That'd be so bad. People don't realize what the goby does to our fisheries the first few years that they get in a body of water. They decimate it.
Yeah, I remember they thought it was going to wipe out the Great Lakes when the gobies first got. I mean, all the articles I'm reading like, man, they destroyed the smallmouth fishery, and then next thing you know, it's like 30-pound bag of smallmouth.
Yeah.
Well, once they figured out they were little protein snacks full of fiber and protein, but the first 3 or 4 years, it really destroyed the fish population because they just ravage eggs. They crushed the spawners. I apologize. My wife printed something and everything went everywhere. Anyway, they destroy. If you catch a smallie off a bed and you pay really close attention, you'll see those gobies go right in.
Yeah.
So thankfully, we have so many smallies now that are big that we don't quite have the goby issue that we did have, because the population in gobies, I actually believe, is starting to plateau, if not actually decrease a little.
Yeah, it's like we mentioned before. I mean, those smallies are not very smart. So it took a couple of years to realize, oh, hey, we can eat those.
Yeah, that's what's crazy about fish, that stuff that I didn't realize on one of our local reservoirs called the Horseshoe, and it's got smallmouth and walleye in it. And I was talking to a biologist one time, and he basically said, and there's smelt is the primary bait fish forage, and then there's obviously crawfish, and the walleye, what they were having issues with is the 3 or 4 year old year class was outgrowing the 8 year old year class of walleye, and it was because those 3 and 4 year olds learned to eat the smelt, and basically when those 8 year olds were younger, the smelt were in a decline, and there was very few in the lake, so that the population just started to feed differently. So I could see maybe that's why smallies with the gobies. It's kind of crazy.
So now here's another funny little fact for you with the smallmouth. Everyone thinks these giant 6-7 pounders in New York are actually 20-year-old fish. They're really between 6 to 10 years old. Wow. Because those gobies make them grow so fast. You can catch a pounder that's 3 years old, 4 years old, because they grow so fast. Which is just crazy. And the only reason why I know that is one of my good friends, he works with the Erie County Fishery Advisories Board. And when they were studying the fish, they were like, wow, this fish is 5 years old and it weighs 4 1/4 pounds. So I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
That is crazy.
That's crazy.
Eating.
A year.
I'm convinced you'll see another state record, or maybe not a world record, but a state record come up in the next couple of years.
It'll come from Lake Ontario or the St. Lawrence.
Yeah.
So I think 3 springs ago we had one tie in Lake Erie in the spring, and I think that same summer one was caught on the St. Lawrence that also tied the state record.
Wow.
Yeah.
That one was a freak. That one was.
What's the state record right now?
8-4.
Oh wow, that's a giant smallmouth.
For the north. Good God.
Well, what was that fish that Paul Mueller caught? That giant.
It was 7-10, I think.
7-13.
Yeah,
and it was post spawn, right? That thing would have been dang close.
Yeah.
So that's kind of funny because I can't talk about it. I'm sorry, KJ. I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh,
this is public information. We're on a public podcast.
So smallmouth are kind of funky in the fact that wherever you go in the Great Lakes, they can spawn anywhere from May till August if you find the right fish on the right cycle. So if you go 100 miles north into Canada, they have smallies that spawn on some of those bigger lakes end of August, September. And you're just like, what?
So they could be that fish could have been a summer pattern fish, even though they were coming off the post spawn, is what I'm saying. He was already eating. And then when were they there? Late July, right, Bailey? Was it late July?
It was July.
So another funny thing about our fish in the Great Lakes is right around the middle of August, a lot of our fish start to develop their eggs for the upcoming spawn. So that fish could have been an early spawner and already developing its eggs and could be like a early May spawner or late April spawner. So there's like they talk about Florida, how they have the spawn that goes from November till April. We kind of have the same thing with smallmouth.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like,
any last questions for these folks about Queen?
Yeah, well, I guess more just about the Elite Series next year. I was just curious, KJ, what's your event you're most excited for?
Ooh, that is a tough one. Honestly, one of the ones I'm most excited for is I'm excited for that Pickwick tournament. And, you know, being out there in West Tennessee at Bethel University, you know, I fished Kentucky Lake, got to do a lot of ledge fishing, learned from a lot of guys. That's, you know, some Tennessee guys. My buddy Evan Ary, he was my fishing partner. He taught me a lot about ledge fishing. We fished Pickwick, the Boat US College National Championship. We fished it. We finished, I think, like 8th in it there, and then we finished 14th in it the next year. And, you know, I've had some experience on Pickwick. I fished it a lot. I like Pickwick, so you know I'm excited to get back out there. I fished the coast actually out there this summer and messed around. I lost the fish and ended up coming in one spot out of the money on the coast of the summer. But I got a general idea of where I want to go and put some fish in the boat. So hopefully we can get it going. But definitely excited about coming up north too and getting on some of them smallmouth, man. I love doing that. There's nothing better than having a big brown one screamer drag. So
heck yeah.
It's like, what is going on?
Yeah. It's gonna be fun. We're looking forward to you guys coming up here. It's you know, we'll obviously have to link up, and like we said, offline, KJ can go up and practice, and you know, Jeff and I will go out and fun fish somewhere else.
That's exactly right.
I mean, I don't have the biggest of boat, but we can make it work. I got a little, just about 19-foot Triton, so.
Hey, that works for me. I grew up in a little Ouachita boat. That's what I started fishing in years and years ago. It's just a little bitty tri-hull and I think 15-footer with a little 30 horsepower on the back. So hey, I have no problem fishing in small boats. That's the way I grew up fishing.
The nice part about my boat though is it does have a 96-inch beam on it, so it's pretty wide.
That's what you need up north too, no doubt. I'm sure it gets rough up there several times, isn't it? In Great Lakes.
Smaller lakes, because they're so thin and narrow and deep.
Oh, really?
They can get really rough.
Anything north-south, yeah, it can get going real quick. Especially in those New York hills.
They can call for a southwest wind, but because they're so far down in valley, the southwest wind will turn south or north really fast because it just funnels in.
Yeah. That's cool. But I don't know, KJ, Jeff, is there anything for you you want to let the folks know, whether about upcoming seasons or anything with Queen Tackle before we sign off here tonight?
Stay tuned and keep up with us and watch us all season and watch me this season as I fish the Elite Series and you know, just hopefully send me a little luck my way and hopefully I can put some fish in the boat. So
heck yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to 2021. I think it's going to be a good year. Good year.
Heck yeah. Well, we're gonna sign off here in a second, but we're gonna hit you with our last question that we like to ask everybody.
Should it be for both of them? So 3 each?
Yeah, why not?
All right. You know.
You guys got time still?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
All right, yeah, we're doing 3 each then. You guys got time, Adam, Andy? You guys good?
Yeah,
all right, sweet. Okay, so our last question for you is KJ, are you 21 yet?
Yes, I am.
Okay. If you both could sit down, have a steak and a beer with any 3 individuals, they don't have to be fishing industry, they don't even have to be alive currently. If you could sit down, have a steak and a beer with 3 different individuals to pick their brain, who are you inviting?
Oh, wow.
the reactions every time. I know I say this, but I love it. It's the same. The facial expression on every single person is like,
Definitely, definitely would want to get the experience. I was fortunate one time I got to eat dinner or eat with Aaron Martins and sat down and had dinner with him one time, and just the knowledge that them guys have of years and years and years and years of bass fishing on top of, it's unbelievable. It really is. And it's like, if you sit down with somebody like that, and, A-Mart is definitely one of them that's just, he's up there at the list with so much knowledge. I'd love to sit down with him. And, Kevin Van Dam, that'd be, he's not done it so much. He's got so much experience over, just across the United States. Learning from him would be another one. That would be huge for me. But the third one, man, I feel like I'd honestly want to sit down and just sit down and eat a steak with Forstdale Wood. Like, because he's been there, he's done it so much. And he's like, he's just one of them considered like legends, or even like say a Johnny Morris or something like that. It's just got so much knowledge of the fishing industry, for Queen Tackle and stuff of that nature. And, somebody like that would be awesome to sit down and talk with.
Yeah. Well, there too. I mean, like, whether it's business or fishing, they're all tinkerers too, which sounds like that's both of you too. So that's all like-minded individuals. I mean, the biggest tinkerer in fishing, Aaron Martins. Yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jeff,
I actually got to talk with Mark Rose one time, and he's the same way. He tinkers with everything, and so, that'd be interesting. I mean, I'd trade a steak and a beer, for a day on the lake with about any of them pro guys. I think that's, I had probably this year, just one of my dreams was, to fish with somebody like a Gerald Swindle. And when I drew him on Rayburn, that was, I wouldn't have traded that for anything. That guy was incredible. And we laughed from the minute we took off till we pulled back in. He's not politically correct when he's on the water. He politely asked me if I was, and I told him no. And we had a great time. And on this podcast, a lot of what we talked about, but it was fun. And but he just knew so much about fishing, and you could just tell. And I would love to do the same thing with like a Rick Clunn. A day on the lake with him, I think, would be just like phenomenal, right? You just learn so much, and somebody even like a Roland Martin, going back to that and just spending some time with these guys that grew up in the industry, got to watch it develop, and just ask them a million questions. And so I don't know if I could get it all in a steak and a beer, but a day on the lake with those guys, that'd be I can learn a lot of information from them.
Hey, nobody said it had to be one steak or one beer. You can have as many as you want.
We eat a steak sandwich, drink a
steak, coffee, perfect.
There you go. Yeah, I like that. That's pretty sweet. Definitely. I mean, anybody with Rick Clunn, I think Rick Clunn's the biggest answer we've gotten on the show. I think everyone would love to sit down and talk to him, just because the stories.
And it's just, I can just remember growing up. I mean, back in the early 90s. I mean, he was my hero, and he's still going strong today. That's what's just impressive to me. That's just the way, he took care of his body and just his mind and his ability to go out there and fish. And, you watch him today, and he's not out there dragging a worm. He's like chunking a spinner bait or a
spinner bait with a big old broodtail spinner.
Yeah, 8-inch swim bait. Like,
it's got to be a moving bait. He's like, I hate throwing I can't be one of these flippers or anything. I got to throw a moving bait. And I just think that's awesome. That he's doing
a very old school mentality in a way.
Yeah, it is old school.
Well, what's his concept called? Is it total immersion or something like that? I can't remember what he was talking about, but it's like you kind of just you get rid of the phones. Or what was that, Adam?
No, yeah, like in his natural world, right? Like it's all like
like submerge yourself, like get away from the outside world, submerge yourself in like everything like that's going on around you, and like he was like that's like his. I think it was something he was saying where it's like in a perfect world, where if he didn't have to worry about these factors of whether it be family, business, expenses, whatever, if he could just totally immerse himself in everything going on, he goes, I could win every tournament.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I know we talked to Patrick Walters about, KJ's traveling next year, and Patrick said that he does a lot of camping, and he said Rick Clunn always camps with him. He said it's about 15 or 20 of them that all camp together. So we're looking at getting trying to make a deal to get some kind of cargo van, put some
bedding in and a fridge and have that.
Back to the 70s, right? Back to get the hippie van.
Yeah. Van life.
But I think
like an old 70s VW wagon bus.
Yeah.
Oh man,
big old Queen Tackle logo. Yep.
Amazing.
I think that whole immersion thing where you're outdoors, you're camping, and Rick Clunn still does that. He's out there in the campgrounds and he's out there in nature, and I think that's why he's still as good as he is. I mean, he's still one of the greatest on the trail today.
Yeah. It's kind of like, to me, he's kind of similar to an Aaron Martins too. One of my buddies, real good buddies, Cody Huff, who actually traveled with me. He got to grow up and fish with Rick. Rick's one of his neighbors in his hometown, and it's actually a pretty cool story. Cody actually saved Rick's son from drowning, and saved him, and he dedicated it to him that like, if you need anything, I got you, I got your back, and and Cody took that to not to his advantage, but he did learn from it, and he's always told me, like, just a little bits of scientific part that he puts into it is insane. He takes a bait and he thinks about not just whether a fish is going to bite it, but he thinks about why he's going to bite it, what's going to make him get that hook a little bit better, or just for example, like say like a spinnerbait. Cody told me that Rick always throws a trailer hook. He never throws a spinnerbait without a trailer hook on it, and it's just because of the fact when that trailer hook's hanging down from the main hook, when that fish comes up to suck that bait in, and he sucks that spinnerbait in, the first thing that fish sucks in is that trailer hook. He's going to suck that trailer hook into its mouth, and you'll see some trailer hooks that have stationary that's set in one spot that have a little rubber grommet at the top or something of that nature, and it's set straight, and you have the free swinging ones. Well, he was saying, he's like, never ever you want to throw one that's like a stationary one. You always want to throw one that's free swinging, just because of the fact when that fish comes up, if he's at a weird angle and that stationary one's there, it could get in the way of him actually sucking it in. When he comes up to suck that bait in, he sucks that swinging trailer hook, and that's the first one that goes into it. So it's like, little stuff like that. And, I've talked to Cody about all kinds of different things of that nature. He said Rick's super, super detailed on the information that he puts into his fishing tackle. So
that's something I think I account for this year, because like the trail hooks I use are the ones with the rubber bands that are coated the eye, so that they usually don't move much at all. That's something to think about.
Yeah, that's the reason I've heard not to throw, like, some guys, it might have even been Brian Frith talking about it one time, talking about not using a trailer hook for that reason, that it stops that fish from getting it all the way. But that makes sense. If it's free swinging, it can, do what it needs to do to that fish to suck it in.
And it may catch it on the outside of the face when it swipes.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
I got lucky down at Louisville earlier this year. I put a trailer hook on my spinnerbait down there, and I was in practice. I wasn't using one, catching some fish, but you had like maybe one or two bump it, and down there the bites were far and few in between. So it's like if you got one, it's like it's gold. And I'm sitting there fishing, and I put a rig up my spinnerbait for a tournament. I'm like, I'm gonna put me a trailer hook on there. I got to just to be safe. And I had that trailer hook on there, and my two biggest fish first day of the tournament just barely had the trailer hook on the outside of the head. So it's like, man, it's like if I don't get that in there, it's like I might not even make the elites without having that trailer hook on there. So it's like just how close the points boiled down. So
right, yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. Well, guys, any last remarks, any last questions for KJ or Jeff before they sign off?
Best of luck. We'll be cheering you on next year.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Hey, and we really appreciate y'all letting us come on tonight. That was it's been a fun time.
Anytime. You guys are always welcome.
Hey,
Always welcome on the show, and it's It was good to finally get you guys on, and it's gonna be exciting to KJ watch you along the elites, and obviously we'll be cheering for you. And like I said, if anything, when you come up north, and anything at all, just give us a holler. We'll be willing to help you out. And Jeff, hopefully you come along too, so we can get out and fish with you, dude.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I want to come after the tournament now. I want to get on a little bit of this fish catching action too.
Yeah, heck yeah, we'll make a troop out of it.
Hey, and you said your jigs are getting a little low. Just give me a text. I'll shoot you a little prize package, a little something to come your way. Let me know.
Perfect. I can never say no to that.
Yeah.
Well, fellas, we really appreciate it. It's appreciate you taking the time out of your night to come on and obviously educate not only us, but the folks that are listening and watching a little bit of history of Queen Tackle, and not only Queen Tackle, but about yourselves and what's to come for 2021. And we're looking forward to it. And obviously, we support the Queen Tackle brand, and it's going to be sweet to see, obviously that grow and more people trust in it and the product that you guys make, and watch KJ, drop some big old sacks on the elite stage. It's going to be sweet.
Better.
Yeah.
Man, that's what I'm be shooting for. Shooting for the top. That's
Got to
it.
pay for that Queen Tackle van somehow.
That's right.
Well, fellas, it's been fun. Hope you guys have a good night, and obviously we'll be in touch.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right, guys. Take care. That was good. That was an hour and a half. I thought maybe an hour. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that to go that long, but I felt like we'd gotten to like an hour 25, and I thought it was like 45 minutes.
Okay.
Well, this is flying by. But did talk about a dynamic duo, and how cool is it? Father son.
Dude. So sweet, man.
They gel.
I think the closest relationship to that, like if it were to like happen fishing professionally, like obviously if Jeff qualified for the elites, is like Roland and Scott Martin.
Yeah.
Or on the BPT, you got Alton and.
Oh, I didn't even think about it. Of course, yeah, Alton Jones Jr. and Alton Jones.
I almost said something, but I thought we were talking just about the Elite Series. But I was like, well, you got the, but.
Oh, I wish you had mentioned that. Yeah. Now I sound like an idiot.
Well, we were just talking about the Elite Series. So.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the Elite Series there isn't one, but Alton and Alton Jones Jr. Totally forgot that. Yeah. But it's cool to see the duo though, because obviously you see KJ obviously has the passion, Jeff has the passion, but you see Jeff's passion for trying to make the best for KJ and his path, and taking it by storm. So it's pretty sweet to see the dynamic they got going. Obviously with the business behind them too, which is pumping out
that's crazy
amazing quality product, and I highly encourage everybody to go check them out. At least go check out the page, see what they got going on, and if you want something, obviously we have a little down there below, a little 20% off code in case you guys want to use that. But it's something I've become a believer in, and it was good to get them on here. It's been a long time since I've spoken to Jeff, and it was good to get him on here and talk about the product and what's coming up for 2021. And it's freaking sweet that KJ made the elites.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But
any last
it's gonna be really cool
from you guys? And Adam, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank
you.
That was
a lot of fun.
Heck yeah, guys. It was a blast. Thanks for having me on. It's cool to really see the dynamic between those two, man. It's been sounds like KJ's dad, Jeff, basically set him up this whole time, every move with college and starting the company around it. Man, what a cool story. And it's going to be really cool to see how he does.
It too was just incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the history, I think that was probably one of the coolest parts. Is hearing, what originated it from, that was pretty sweet. But fellas, I think that's going to do it for tonight. But Adam, as always, we appreciate you coming through and getting that business-oriented mindset. We always appreciate that. You are always welcome to come on and co-host with us. But I think Friday, we're looking at a Friday Night Live podcast potentially with a couple folks. So, Adam, if you want to join us for that one as well, you are more than welcome. I think we're going to have on Rich Lindgren, Kevin Baxter, the bait man's going to come join us on that one. We're just going to kind of kick it. Yeah, we're going to kick it. Say hello.
Right way.
Say hello to 2021 and say see you freaking later to 2020.
Yeah, no joke.
But
awesome, guys.
As always, folks, thank you guys again for watching and listening. We'll see you guys on Friday.